When you learn at a very young age that the people you love can permanently leave, how do you keep your heart safe? This is a question a young boy had to answer long before he was ready. After being separated from his birth parents as an infant, he was adopted, only to lose his adoptive mother when he was just 9 years old, in a foreign country. You might remember the story of the little prince who left his tiny asteroid to wander the universe and try to understand it. This boy did something similar, but he traveled using his mind. He didn't cry the way stories say a child should. He didn't protest. Instead, he made a quiet, internal decision to stop expecting tomorrow to look anything like today. When a child's heart is handed a sadness too enormous to hold, their mind often steps in to help. It builds a fortress of logic and rules to ensure they never have to feel that helpless again. This fortress is like a towering, cold building, a library filled from floor to ceiling with blueprints, encyclopedias, and complex philosophical frameworks. As the boy grew into a brilliant man, he used this library to map out human behavior. He studied systems architecture and ancient philosophies, turning the messy reality of connection into clean, predictable data. The library offered him a sense of control. If he could analyze and perfectly understand every single interaction, he could never be caught off guard. This library serves as an intellectual shield, a sophisticated hiding spot built to keep the risky, messy nature of love safely locked outside the doors. While the man spent his days up in the cold library of his mind, down below sat the warm, loud, and messy kitchen of everyday life, the place where the dishes pile up and where his family actually lives. Sometimes your body is sitting right there at the kitchen table, but your attention is 1,000 miles away. This is presence bankruptcy, where the mind has left the room long before the body does. This chart shows the 168-hour audit, a tool measuring his attention over a standard week. The data was stark. He logged 70 hours in the library, wrapped in abstract thought, and only 14 hours mentally present with family. Analyzing your relationships from afar starves the actual relationships right in front of you. A body in the room carries very little weight if the mind is elsewhere. We can look at this through a different lens. Think of Cindy Lou Who watching the Grinch try to steal Christmas. The Grinch believed that if he took away all the presents and trees, no one could be hurt by the holiday ending. The man developed everyday habits to do something similar. He used a tiny, dismissive voice to say, "Who cares? So what? Big deal." He performed indifference specifically so others wouldn't see how deeply he actually cared. This diagram shows a habit called pre-weaning, the act of anticipating a loss and stepping away emotionally before the other person has a chance to leave first. The logic makes sense to a frightened mind. You try to soften the blow of a future goodbye by removing your presence today. These behaviors spring from a deep, quiet terror. You end up trading away today's joy just to make sure no one else has the power to break your heart tomorrow. The trouble with all this architecture is that you can't love a rose by writing a flawless 169-page encyclopedia about it. There is a massive difference between doing intellectual work, stacking up papers or debating ideas, and the vulnerable act of simply standing at the sink doing the dishes, or holding a hand in silence. Insight does not equal connection. All the brilliant blueprints in the world cannot substitute for the raw courage required to drop your armor and simply be seen. The path forward requires putting down the blueprints, walking out the heavy doors of the library, and stepping empty-handed into the kitchen to sit down with the people you love. The only metric that actually matters anymore is something we can call the rose test. You stop asking if you perfectly understand your own psychology, and you start asking, does the person I love actually experience me as easier to be with? A different path begins with unannounced noticing. It's the quiet, humble act of giving someone your full, unsplit attention without trying to explain the moment or fix their problems. Cindy Lou taught us that love arrives perfectly well without boxes, bows, or blueprints. And the Little Prince taught us that it is the time you spend sitting quietly with your rose that makes your rose so important. Mortality guarantees that we will eventually lose the things we love. Leaving the fortress to offer our unmediated, messy presence is the only true way to make that loss survivable for the people we leave behind.